Good morning. I'm Bonna Heinzen with the Cook County Farm Bureau, and I have the opportunity to spend this morning chatting with Nick DeGroot. And Nick, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your history.
Yeah, I'm Nick DeGroot, and I started with the company. I believe it's pretty close to 1962 or three. I was hired as an agent in the insurance end, and soon learned that the Farm Bureau was a vital part of the organization because there was a membership fee that we had to get along with selling all our insurance products. So that's basically the way it started. And as an agent, which I was an agent for like 10 years, then I was promoted to a manager of a new office in South Holland. I came there with 3 agents, and there's a lot of, oh man, so many stories back with that, starting a new office. And the company's procedure at that point was that if an agent got promoted to manager, it would not be in the agency that he worked in. So the Farm Bureau board was pretty adamant that they wanted me to be the manager of that agency. So the company, here again, was Farm Bureau's clout, or whatever you want to call it. They went along with that. So I was the first manager that got appointed to the agency that he worked in, actually as an agent. So there were 4 guys that came with me, and suddenly now I was their boss, and I had worked with them for 10 to 15 years as we're just agents. And so that brought a few challenges, which, yeah, were overcome eventually. So that's how it started. We started in South Holland agency, and we grew that. At one time, I had 29 agents, and they took some away along the route because some man came into the home office and said that one guy could not manage that many agents. So they took 10 away from me. And then, to make a real long story short, about 3 years later, I got all 10 of them back. So that's basically my story with the Farm Bureau as far as when I started, and I worked for the last 11 years as the manager of the South Holland agency, and then I retired. So it was a great relationship, and we had to attend Farm Bureau board meetings once a month to report our agency production, and all the Farm Bureau members of the board we got to know fairly well, and actually went on a few trips with them as well. So that's basically my story. So I'll throw it back to you if you've got any direct questions that you want to ask me, because I do have my coffee.
That's wonderful. So we'll settle in for a conversation. You talk about the Farm Bureau board. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship between Country Financial and the Farm Bureau at that time? I mean, right now, the thing that I've always been taught is that um, to have premium Country Financial products, you have to be a Farm Bureau member.
Right.
Can you just touch on that relationship?
Well, it was a good relationship. In fact, it grew. Like now, there's so many benefits by being a member. But back then, it was purely as an agent selling the product. You had to share with the client the relationship with the Farm Bureau board, because it was started by farmers for the benefit of farmers, and they relinquished, because in Cook County a lot of the farm ground was being just used up, and so there was not a whole lot of farmers around, and they still wanted to participate in getting client relationship and building business. So they relented and said, okay, you don't have to own acreage, but you do have to become a Farm Bureau member. and here's the reason why, the benefits. And so we had to do a selling job of the Farm Bureau board, but generally the premium was satisfactory, including that membership. I think at that time was like $36 a year. Insurance was, when I compare rates with different companies, including the membership, they were still saving money. So then the board got some remuneration from the company for every member that we signed up. And at one time, in fact, I still have a plaque in my office at home that my agency was the leading agency in getting Farm Bureau memberships. And I want to say it was like 2,900 memberships for that particular year. I may be off a little bit, but I know it was right around there. So, and that was our relationship with the board. And the local Farm Bureau board, when we made our reports, they always looked at how many members we got. And I think at that time we had 3 or 4 offices in Cook County, and all of us had to report. So it turned out to be a very profitable thing for the Cook County Farm Bureau. Yeah, and I think that pretty well sums it up. So we just had to realize that we had to sell the membership and do the best job we could, because a year from now, right now, they incorporated in the premium of the product. But back then, every November, the memberships would be mailed out again for $36. And a lot of our, well, no, not really a lot. Most of them paid it. But if they didn't pay it, then the local Cook County board would send us a list of our clients who hadn't paid their membership dues yet. So we got, I think, a period like 45 days. If they didn't pay it, their insurance would be canceled. So, and we did have we lost some clients every year, but the majority stuck around. And then I think it was like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even more than that they incorporated the premium. As the bill went out for the insurance product, the membership was in there. So it was a great way to eliminate a lot of cancellations. So it saved everybody work. Okay.
Absolutely. Your relationship obviously is with Country Financial, but can you speak a little bit during the time that you were with the agency just about agriculture and what you saw going on in the county with the changes and everything?
Yeah, there were a lot of things that the local Cook County board did. Was that they had in-school projects that they did with various schools. I know there were several things that they did to enhance the relationship between the board and the client, as far as being able to give them, they would do a lot of things are coming to my mind now. They will do ground samples. Like if, in fact, I used that myself at one time. I had an issue on my lawn that was not producing good grass. So I had to send a sample of the ground into the Farm Bureau. And that was done by quite a few people, because a lot of people had their gardens in the backyard, and for, just for family use and stuff like that, or if they were growing even grass seed, different spots in their lawn, they could do a ground sample, and the local board would do that, and it really went over fairly well. And even with like trees that got a disease and different things like that, flowers, we could send a sample of the product in, and they would very often come back and say, okay, here's your problem, here's what you got to do. So that enhanced the relationship between the client and the board as well. So, and then over the years, I get literature today, because I'm still insured with the company, of course. And we just got our current pamphlet, and there's a lot of breaks that people get. Uh, uh, in fact, at one time, when you bought a General Motors product, there was $500 was off the ticket. Now I think it's a Ford product. But nonetheless, glasses and water parks and tickets you can get. So yeah, it certainly hasn't diminished. It's got a lot of advantages.
Absolutely. The one thing I like asking all of our members is to think back about the board of directors. Who was on the board during the time that you remember that stands out?
Well, I remember Alden, way back, Gordon Fox, I believe was the first Farm Bureau manager. And at that time, I was not a manager, and he would, I remember it so well because about maybe once a month, Gordon Fox would come to our office in South Holland. Well, at that time was in Tinley Park. And he would, if the agents were in there, he'd buy our lunch. And in the early years when I started as an agent, the income was certainly not there to where I could go out to lunch on a regular basis. So it was always a highlight when Gordon would come down, because he'd buy lunch, of course. And I remember those days. We laugh about it now when I think about it, but that was, to get a free lunch was awesome. So, because we didn't have a whole lot of income, and I just didn't have a lot of money. And so Gordon Fox was, and then he would have, occasionally he'd have all of his guys out to his house for a fish fry and stuff like that to enhance the relationship. And then Alden Killian came on when I was a manager. So I worked with Alden a lot. Our relationship was phenomenal. In fact, at that time, we had 3 managers, 3 insurance offices in Cook County, and they would invite us to come along to some of the board meetings where they would have their annual meetings. And that was always a nice perk for us guys. And then in my later years, Bob Rohr, right? If I'm thinking, I didn't really work under him. A little bit, maybe in the last year or two. But I just was there not too long ago when they were going to have their celebration, which never happened. We provided, the company I work for now provided some product for them to give away. So I had a nice time to chat with him. But from what I gather, I still have a relationship with some of the agents in my area that I hired, and it's all good with Bob. So I'm sure that the relationship is phenomenal. But a lot of the board members, we would come when we had our board meetings. It was one of the products, we'd have a kind of a little hors d'oeuvre table, and it was a huge stack of ground beef, the size of a football, freshly ground beef, and then some onions and some stuff we could put on that. And we would literally devour that plate of ground meat with all the hors d'oeuvres before our meeting started. So that's some of the things I remember. But a lot of the guys that were board members several of them lived in my county, so I would see them on a regular basis as well. And one, Howard Paulberg, who was the board president for, man, a good number of years, actually was married to my wife's cousin. So, and my father-in-law farmed with Howard. So that's how close the relationship went. anyway, so that's some of the highlights that I remember were just that. So it was a great relationship.
So Howard's son is on our list for the interviews for the 100-year anniversary.
Larry?
And Larry is.
Yeah.
We're trying to set a date and everything. But I have to tell you, you are the first person who has mentioned Gordon Fox. And
Really?
yes, and I've had the pleasure of doing several of these interviews, but you're the first one who has brought up Gordon Fox. And I just think it is so cool to think about the transition between the managers and the board members during that time as well.
Right.
And just the
Yeah.
history and everything.
In fact, if I look at there's a lot of guys who are on the board now who are relatives of the older members, like Larry now. He was on the board, I believe, for, I don't know how long, but that's Howard's son. And it's just amazing. And because I'm very close to being 82 years old, I can remember some of these guys, and it's all good. It's all good memories. Gordon he was a great guy, but he certainly was Farm Bureau board. He was more interested in memberships than if I sold a record amount of autos or life insurance. He really could care less, but his function was membership, So anyway, we worked together, all in good community, and we all had some of the priorities that we had to do. His was membership, mine was auto and life insurance, because that's what the company wanted. And they never asked me how many memberships when I went to insurance meetings. They never asked me how many memberships, but anyway, that's just the way it all worked out. So cool.
I find it to be fascinating, just the relationship between the country agency managers and the board of directors, and listening. My history with Farm Bureau is more recent, but I see a lot of the same history and that relationship and building the communications and working for the shared goal going on today that you brought to Farm Bureau and were part of in the history of it.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's there's guys now that are just starting out in their career. They're hiring new guys. And I talked to a new agent the other day, and of course he didn't know me from Adam. And the agent who introduced me said that I've been around longer than Methuselah, But and I'm having guys that are retiring that I hired that are there or have been there 25, 30, 33 years, So it's kind of interesting, but anyway.
I actually have the pleasure of interviewing one of those guys who has just retired from Country Financial later today, and that's Jack Smith.
Oh yeah, Jack, I saw that.
As I said, I know you know Jack.
I know Jack, yes. In fact, I sent him a card and told him to have a good time, But yeah, I attended a lot of meetings with Jack. So, yep.
So as we are nearing the end of our time, is there anything that you want to add? Anything that has come to mind?
I've thought a lot about it, and it's actually, it's all good stuff, but I don't have, I worked with a lot of agents and I hired a lot of agents. Some didn't make it. I have one agent that, in fact, he just retired the first of the year. And I think was close to 30 years, but he was a first cousin to my wife. And I really hesitated. I just dragged my feet as far as hiring him, because I knew if we had a problem that I'd have to let him go, and he was leaving his job. And anyway, so finally, it was a final interview. His wife said to me, "All right, are you going to hire Jim or not? Because I got to know." And finally, I just said, "Yeah, okay, I'll hire him." So he turned out to be just fabulous agent for me, was a leader of my agents, and and we still have lunch once a month. And he lost his wife, he's remarried, and everything is fine. And he's just a quality guy. And so it was one of the good things that I still remember of guys you hire that are really have been successful and have done their job without question, you know. So, and there's a lot of guys out there that I feel that way about. So anyway, no, other than that, no, I have nothing but great memories. That's why my insurance will always be with Country Companies, Country Financial. I don't care if some company wants to come in and pay me to take their insurance. I just feel it's a debt that I have to the company for giving me the opportunity, which was all good. Okay, so that's basically it.
Nick, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to chat with me. I truly appreciate it. And I love the perspective that you've added, because you are honestly our first Country Financial interview. And so it's a different perspective, and it's that inner relationship and the working together. And I just feel like you have captured it, and you speak so well to it.
Well, that's great, because that's my heart. And yeah, it's great. Super. I enjoyed it. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too.